everybody. Diane Sare is with us. Hello, Diane. She is running for Congress, and I super duper appreciate you coming on up here. Everybody, she's running against Kristen Gillibrand. And oh man, I hope you win, because not only do we get a great person in Congress, but we get a really bad person out of Congress. I am glad to have you up here. Go ahead and reintroduce yourself to the chat room. Thank you for joining.
Sure. First of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes, the audio is nice and clear.
Good, good, excellent. So I am an independent candidate for U.S. Senate in New York. You're correct, against Kirsten Gillibrand. The state of New York has outlawed the use of the word independent for the ballots. So therefore I've called my line the LaRouche line, since I worked with Lyndon LaRouche for 35 years, which will come up in our discussion because he had a huge brawl with the Anti-Defamation League, and we actually published a whole book about them in the 90s when he was in prison, where he had been sent by Bush Sr., Bill Weld, Henry Kissinger, and others. Now, can I still be heard? I heard a weird noise.
Oh, no, you're good, you're good.
Good, okay, you'll let me know if I disappear. Yeah, so that's it. I'm on the ballot. It is Kirsten Gillibrand. She is really nasty, worse than you think. Her father-in-law was for a time vice president of British Aerospace, the weapons contractor, very nasty, and was there for quite a while. So she never met a war that she didn't love and want to send weapons into. She's on the Intelligence Committee, and is part of the whole, mass surveillance operation. So that's what I can say, just for starters. And I'm wearing my t-shirt still because I'm at the fair, and we've been organizing at fairs all over the state, and they are long days, but I love doing it because you really get a sense of what's happening to people. And I must say, I'm meeting some amazing people, but people are going through a really hard time, particularly the farmers. They are in so much trouble. So that's what I can tell you so far.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I gotta thank you so much once again for joining us, everybody. Diane Sare out of New York. Super appreciate you. I really, last time you were with us, that was quite a few weeks ago. You spoke about ADL and BlackRock, and so I would love to hear you touch upon them too. And then we have some guests up here that ask you some questions and stuff like that. So please let us know, or ADL first, because you're so well educated on ADL, and they are a common enemy to freaking everybody. So please go right ahead.
Sure. Well, the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith really has nothing to do with Judaism and has a great deal to do with organized crime, and then using the brush anti-Semitic to stroke anti-Semitic paint over anybody who might interfere with their organized crime syndicate. And I mean, look, Edgar Bronfman was a major part of this, the lawyer Kenneth Bialkin, Robert Vesco. If you think of all kinds of really bizarre, foul-smelling financial deals, leading board members of the Anti-Defamation League were involved in it. Also, at the time the book came out, I just sort of began reading it, and it's just so densely packed with names and who did what to whom. There was a book that LaRouche's associates put out in 1992 called The Ugly Truth About the ADL. We did it because when LaRouche was sent to prison, which was a total fraudulent, politically motivated case, part of the way they got away with it is they spread all these slanders. Oh, LaRouche is a really terrible person. He's a right-wing extremist. He's a racist. He's a homophobe. He's anti-Semitic. He's anti-women. He's anti-Catholic. He's a communist. He's a fascist. I mean, they just called him everything. And this has now become so common, it tends to backfire. I met a guy organizing in the street who was actually, I think, a professor at some New York university. And I called him back after meeting me. He said, I went and looked up LaRouche on Wikipedia, he's the only person I ever saw being called a Nazi and a communist in the same paragraph. And so he said there must have been something about him that really offended people. So the ADL came in, and in fact, one of their board members, Myra Boland, as in Meyer Lansky, but Myra Lansky Boland, was one of the prosecutors in the case in Virginia. So they get called in to silence people, and then to raise money. They have been known to actually stage phony incidents where their own people will spray paint a synagogue or commit some horrible act, and then they'll come in and say, give us a lot of money because there's anti-Semitism going on here, that kind of thing. But very tied up in the international drug trade and organized crime.
They actually did some of their like local false flags themselves. My God.
They did.
Man.
And my dog doesn't appreciate it, so he's barking.
Well, your dog is
yes.
very, very smart. Yeah, that's the ADL, everybody. Listen, ADL is into so much bad stuff. It's like I mentioned like here and there. The main things that you see them on is like the control over our college campuses and forcing college campuses to be more and more pro Blueberry Zombie while doing crackdowns on free speech and anything that's which they reinterpret as antiseptic. I have to use a lot of code talk, Diane. Excuse the TikTok code talk. Replacement words. The algorithm picks it up. So no, yeah, that's them who does the crackdowns on college campuses and also social media. They brag on their own website how they write the platform rules for social media to follow to make sure that everything is biased in favoritism towards Israel and the Israel diaspora. So that's the ADL, everybody. That is one of the main pillars. That's one of the institutions in which they influence, exercise control over inside of America. So Diane,
I just want to add, because there was a really funny victory, which just shows how the tide has turned. I don't know if you heard that Wikipedia, the board of Wikipedia, which is not great because they continue to put a lot of slanders out, but nonetheless, they voted that Anti-Defamation League is not a reliable source on Israel.
Oh, so I seen that. Yes, that came out recently. I seen that a few days ago. Yep, that's 100%. Yes, it is. Yeah, everybody can see that. So if anybody in the chat room would like to come up and ask Diane a question, you are free to do so. Always be polite, respectful, all that. If you do not have a question, just wait till another time, guys. And Diane, again, thank you so much for coming up here. And alliances. Oh, go ahead. All right. Well, Roots of Gaza, go ahead. I think the line got a little bit mixed up. So Roots of Gaza, go ahead first, and then I'll get to alliances, and then Rod one, I think. Okay. So go ahead, Roots of Gaza. Appreciate you back, bud.
Thank you, man. Hi, Diane. How are you?
I'm well,
a question. Were you approached by AIPAC or any of their affiliates, like trying to get you on their side, or it threatens you or something like that ever?
No, I was never approached by them. I think they know it's hopeless, given my background. I have been actually put on one of the Ukrainian, or actually 2 or 3 of the Ukrainian hit lists, or kill lists, as we call them. The latest one being Texty, which has 112 congressmen and Trump and Robert Kennedy Jr., who are terrible regarding Israel-Palestine, but in the case of Ukraine-Russia, are very clear that Ukraine cannot win the war. And apparently, if you say that Ukraine is not winning and that we should not keep sending weapons over there, then you are a Russian disinformation terrorist. And these groups are actually calling for violence against people who say things like that. So I am on one of those lists that I know of. So, or I'm on 2 or 3 of those. Yeah.
God bless you, and you hope you win.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really, really appreciate that about you. And yeah, I've been saying that for a long time. Ukraine cannot possibly win, guys. And as far as Diane, correct me if I'm wrong. I read this a few months ago on an article, is that Putin even offered a very generous ceasefire. Like if Ukraine agrees not to join NATO, they would actually pull back some of its troops. Did you hear that? Is that correct?
Well, that happened only 1 month into the fighting. I mean, look, first of all, anyone who knows anything about Russia, Ukraine, and looks at a map would know that if Putin really wanted to take Ukraine, he could have done it in about 3 days or less. I mean, they could have just steamrolled the place. They could have obliterated it. He didn't do that. He didn't want to do that. He just wanted them to stop unaliving the Russian-speaking population in the East, in the Donbass. And in fact, in December of 2021, Putin came to Biden, NATO, the UK, and he said, look, I wanted in writing that Ukraine is not going to have nuclear weapons. They're not going to join NATO. And I have to let you know that ethnic cleansing against the Russian-speaking people in the East is I cannot tolerate it. And I finally realized that the reason why Biden could have been so explicit on which day Ukraine or Russia was going to invade Ukraine was because the Ukrainian army on the Kiev side was massing its troops against the Donbass. And they were planning, in fact, an assault to kill a huge number of the Russian speakers. And on one day, they dropped 1,600 shells on Donetsk. So the following day, lo and behold, Putin takes action exactly as he said. They had crossed a red line. And I know people like Jeffrey Sachs and others had actually called the White House, called the Biden administration and said, look, Putin is trying to tell you, why don't you give him a written agreement? Why don't you promise Ukraine is not going to have and they said, oh, no. So they deliberately provoked this. So Russia moved in with only, I think, something like 40,000 troops. That's not enough to take Ukraine. But they indicated they were serious. Turkey organized negotiations between Zelensky and Putin. Their people met in Turkey. And they came to an agreement, and they had already initialed it. And basically, I think Crimea would have been recognized as part of Russia. Ukraine had agreed to be neutral, to not join NATO. The fighting was going to stop. Russia began pulling its troops back to allow for the agreement. And the next thing you know, Boris Johnson hops on an airplane, flies over there, and tells Ukraine, you just keep on fighting. We're going to arm you. Don't give up. And now, hundreds of thousands of lives lost later. Ukraine has not won. They're being devastated. And it's clear that Zelensky is worried that money might get cut off with a new administration. If we're going to get a new administration, that remains in the air. But therefore, he's now beginning to be interested in talks. And so you had Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary meet with Zelensky, Putin, Xi Jinping, and Donald Trump. And that was just a few days before the assassination attempt on Trump in Pennsylvania, interestingly, I think. So I think peace is possible. I think that peace is actually the natural condition of mankind. It is not natural for people to run around wanting to destroy each other. That's a very unpleasant state of affairs. No one wants their children to grow up in that. So the people who are evil, who are cruel, who are hateful, have to exert enormous amounts of effort to get people to commit hideous crimes as we see occurring right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roots of Gaza. Excellent. And Diane, that's 100% right. Guys, everything the media told you about the Russian-Ukraine war has been a freaking lie. The media has been lying to you. Russia had they've been saying that Russia's intention was to take all of Ukraine. That was not true. Russia only wanted these two sections of Ukraine that were historically Russian anyway, and that has a majority Russian population. When the Soviet Empire fell apart, for some odd reason, when they were redrawing the national lines, they gave, from what I heard, it was like either an accident or just some carelessness, but they gave Ukraine, parts of that like are historically Russian and with Russian population. So it was never Russia's intent to take all of Ukraine, despite what our media says. And everything else that happened is exactly just like how Diane said it. So thank you so much for explaining all that. Roots of Gaza. Thank you so much, Roots of Gaza. Remember, everybody, keep your microphone on until it's your turn, just to keep the background noise down. Thank you, everybody. Alliances, you're up next for your question, and then Rodwin. So go ahead, Alliances. Appreciate you up here, my friend. Go right ahead.
Always happy to be here. Thank you, Diane, for accepting the invitation from Erik. Thank you for being with us in this little tribe where we try to educate each other and bring in this what's missing in the public discourse. My question will be split into two little pieces. The first one, since you're running for Congress, I would think that the founding fathers would have fled Europe away from the United Kingdom or the Kingdom of England. And somehow, if they were alive right now, they will be in despair, crying out loud, saying, hey, how did we end up with 437, well, 35 plus the president and the vice president, 37 little kings running the show? I don't know if you would agree with me or not. In that case, I would think I'd rather deal with one king instead of 337 of them. That's for one. For two, here in Sacramento, and I live between on and off for personal reasons between California and Illinois. In both cases, I'm fortunate enough to have the bare minimum, even if that bare minimum is not enough to sustain myself and my family, but we keep pushing. It's okay. There's not just one of me, there's 350 million of me actually in these United States, and hopefully they're gonna stay united. And apparently on top of the 337 little kings, add to them one genocidal one that came to Congress to actually humiliate each and every one of them there against what has been done and being done for 75 years plus this year, where we can see the unaliving of people right and left live on TV and live on our cell phones. Are we going to normalize with this? What can be done, especially in Congress, because that's where how am I going to say it? The cancer, the metastasized cancer have spread across to where we see every single one of them but Rashida Tlaib, an actual American person, even a newcomer, but I feel like she is the real America that the founding fathers saying, hey, this is a G-side. What happened to the rest of them? How can you be different? And what should be done to get rid of the rest of them? Thank you so much.
Well, I'm really glad you asked that question, and I'm really glad you brought up our founding fathers, because contrary to popular opinion, our nation was not founded by a bunch of self-entitled, arrogant, racist, slave-owning elites, even though some of them owned slaves. The real intellectual leaders such as Alexander Hamilton, Benjamin Franklin, later John Quincy Adams, Gouverneur Morris, were vehemently opposed to slavery, and they knew it was in direct contradiction with the whole purpose of creating our republic, which was that if you believe that every single person is indeed created equal, then what gives someone the right to rule over another person? Why is someone a leader and someone not a leader? And this was an idea first developed by Nicholas of Cusa in a paper he wrote called Concordantia Catholica in the 1400s. It might have been 1439 or so, where he said exactly because of this quandary, if everybody he was a cardinal in the church, so if everybody is equally created in the image of the creator, why is someone a leader and someone not? And he said the only reason why someone gets to be a leader is that the led or the citizens must give their consent. So the whole notion of the consent of the governed was critical, and it's in our Declaration of Power of Independence, right? Deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's the point of this electoral process. Now, what is often not spoken about is the role of the governed. We talk about 3 branches of government, but there's a 4th very important branch, which is the people, which Abraham Lincoln talks about in the Gettysburg Address. And we, the people, also have an enormous amount of power. And in George Washington's farewell address, he actually writes about the importance of culture, of religion, of literacy, because if the people have that much power, then the best way to subvert and destroy your republic is to make the people insane, to debase them, to degrade them. And we really had that after the assassination of Kennedy and the assassination of Martin Luther King, I would say very, very important, because if you think about what the civil rights movement was prior to the King assassination, he really harkened back very much to Frederick Douglass. He had a very profound understanding of the Constitution. So he was really American. And he wasn't saying black only. He was saying black and white children together. He knew that this was the direction of the nation. So he gets assassinated. The FBI takes over the civil rights movement. And instead you get a racially divided movement. You had an anti-Vietnam War movement. What happened to that? Instead of being an anti-Vietnam War movement, it became the rock, drug, sex counterculture movement. And so there was a period in the 60s where somehow our nation completely lost its identity. And our founding fathers, who had a revolution against the British Empire because they said no nation should be enslaved, and they were intending and working for getting rid of slavery, and that's a whole other story to go through, the fights, the faction fights and everything that went on with that. But they would be horrified. Our nation is now doing every single thing that we list in the Declaration of Independence that the British Empire was doing to us. The whole reason why we declared our independence: no standing armies, no search and seizure, trial by jury of your peers. We are now acting exactly like the British Empire. And part of what I am hoping to do with my campaign, I'm really lucky to be running in New York because there's so much incredible history of the American Revolution here, is to revive, to kind of reach inside of people and say, hey, you're an American, you're not supposed to be acting this way. And John Quincy Adams wrote this incredible 4th of July address in 1821. Everyone may be familiar with the quote, "She seeks not abroad for monsters to destroy." That was in his speech about the United States. And he said, if we get involved in fighting all over the world, he said, we may become the dictatress of the world, but we will no longer rule our own spirit. Well, is that not exactly what's happened? So it's a tough one. I actually think the Congress is not the source of their corruption. It's big money. They've rigged the system. It costs an enormous amount of money to get elected. And by the way, if you're listening and you're a U.S. citizen or green card holder, please donate to my campaign. It's totally grassroots. So, people who are novices or have perhaps a naive or romantic idea about why they're running for office, it's probably easy to get lured by money. And then you're on the hook. And then you just do what these people say. And I'm sure people have had the experience of going to Congress and meeting with these people. You feel like you're talking to a pod person because the thing you're talking to isn't really there. It's what's behind it and what's the money. So we have to break that. And we as the American people have to be so much better. we've got to demand that our leaders hold a really high standard. We should be stomping into their congressional offices every other day. You should get to know, they should know your name. Every single staff member of your congressperson should know your name because you've been bothering them so much. And the other factor, I'm sorry for going on, but I just want to get this out. The world has changed. Colonialism is over. Nations in Africa are just kicking out the American troops, the French troops. They don't want any part of it. I don't think the United States is immune from that. And frankly, the population of the United States is about 4% of the world's population. So we're sitting here in the middle of the dark age, and it feels pretty oppressive. And of course, what is going on in Gaza is an absolute moral atrocity and horror. But the majority of the world doesn't think that. They look at us, they saw the 58 standing ovations for the war criminal in Congress, and they just think we're nuts. And they feel sorry for us, frankly, because we've all lost our minds and our country is disintegrating and we're perpetuating this evil. So something is going to change very big. I hope, and I'm working that the change is for the better, because as an American in particular, I really want our nation to do something good in the world.
If I may add just one little, speaking of, and I do apologize, I never do this, but I think it's relevant. The Marshall Plan after World War II, we rebuilt Europe with $15 billion. Up to 2018, $250 billion have been given for free, without even factoring in the inflation. 15 billion to rebuild Europe was with inflation. 239 billions have been given to this genocidal, I don't know how to call it, because at this point, I mean, they've done everything so far. 230 billion, while I have here in California people laying on the ground, nobody even looking at them, people homeless. Like, shouldn't we, give foreign aid? Shouldn't we give aid to ourselves before giving it to foreign? Period? Like, I just wonder sometimes.
Sure. No, I'll tell you, at the county fair that I've been at the last several days, it turns out to be the #1 county in the state of New York for opioid deaths. And they have a lot of poverty here. It's a big farm area. They have next to zero money for mental health, zero money for housing. Young people who get clean, get off drugs, and then there is nowhere for them to go, and they get right back in their community and they're back on drugs again. Would not this be worth an investment to allow these people to become a productive part of our workforce? Absolutely. So I agree. And it is going to it's going to break. I just don't know which way. I think the situation now is extremely dangerous. Clearly, Bibi came here to get a green light for a certain kind of escalation, and it looks like he's gotten it. And I don't know how far this is going to spread or where it's going.
Yeah, excellent, good points too, and fantastic speech you just gave, actually. So thank you so much to Alliance. I think Radwin, I think you're next, my friend, correct? Radwin is next. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. So go ahead, Radwin. Let me microphone request. Are you there, my friend? There you are. Hello, my friend. Go right ahead.
Yes, thank you for allowing me up here, Erik. Diane, if I may, you touched on the opioid issues and crisis. I've had friends and family. I don't think there is a person in this country that doesn't know someone or has had contact with someone that's not affected. What is the plan? I mean, I'm not putting it all on you, but how long is this going to go on? And how and when is Big Pharma going to be held accountable for their action, even though there has been some lawsuits settled here and there? It's getting out of control. I just wanted your take on it, not to put you on the spot, but how would you handle that?
Well, I appreciate that. And, when I decided to run for office, I put myself on the spot. So that's not your fault. You know, the United States right now has no mission. And on the opioid epidemic, you can thank the Anti-Defamation League a lot for that, because that's what they've been protecting, drug money laundering. And if you go after it, then they say you're anti-Semitic. So we have to have a mission, because what do people really want? I mean, what makes you happy? It's to know that you have done something for which you will be remembered, which was appreciated, that you've made a contribution that's going to last beyond the short bookends of your life. And if the nation has no purpose, then there is nothing for you to give. And that's very depressing and demoralizing. And when that's combined with hyperinflation, so that you can barely make ends meet and you feel like a failure and you can't support a family, and then you look and your country not only is not doing something good, but it's doing things that are evil. These are all contributing factors. I will say that I don't think having recreational drug dispensaries on every street corner is a big help. And the people I met with at the fair who have been clean for 6 years or 8 years were telling me that they say that you really have to go completely cold. You have to be just clean, forget it. They said abstinence, and we had a whole discussion about that. Marijuana is a gateway drug, etc. They were adamant on that. I don't advocate long prison sentences or any prison. That's not the way you're going to deal with this. Do we value the mind of a child? Do we think that every citizen in this country has something, a talent that they can contribute? Because if you value that, then you say, you know what, we need mental health care. We need rehabilitation. We need affordable housing. We need jobs where people get to use their mind and do something really exciting. Like maybe we should design 5 new cities. Maybe we should have a city that is a city for classical music, and one is a city for fusion research, and another is a city for biotechnology or whatever. And people live there and it's planned. I mean, imagine the optimism and excitement if you were 8 years old and someone told you you might get to participate in building a new city, how your mind would unleash. So I think these are all factors. And the cultural one too, because they tell you if you feel depressed, we're in a dark age. We're on the brink of World War III. We can't afford our homes. We should feel depressed. If you don't feel depressed, there's something wrong with you. But they say, oh, take a drug, take this, take that, get electroshock, stick your finger in the socket, then you won't feel depressed anymore. No, we have to be in reality. So I hope that makes sense, what I just said.
Yes, it really does. And more education at the grade school level, community services. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that. I appreciate that. Thank you, and wish you best of luck. And thank you too, Erik. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. All right, Radwin, thank you so much. Freedom. Go ahead, Freedom. Welcome back and go right ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Diane. Thank you so much for coming on this forum and educating us. I have to say I agree with everything that you've said. I would like to posit that I think we need to start manufacturing things again here in this country. If we started manufacturing things, people would have jobs. We wouldn't have to be buying things from China or, any other country. We need to be self-sufficient. And another subject I'd like you to speak about is women's rights. The rights to our own autonomy.
Well, we have a right to be in office. We still have a disproportionately small number of women who are elected officials. So I think, I really prefer to think in terms of human rights equally for every single person. And I don't know, maybe there are differences in the brains of males and females. I tend to doubt it. There might be certain chemical or hormonal differences, but in terms of capability or competency, there really isn't. Just as our skins may be different colors, but our brains are all the same color. They look the same. So that's why I'm saying we have to value this quality. Each person has a talent and we don't know what it is. In Italy, they believe that everybody can sing. So everybody's obsessed with finding out what kind of singing voice everybody, at least they used to be. And you'd go into a bar or wherever and everyone would just start singing and they'd be totally excited to discover that you were a tenor and you're a baritone. And if you know some older Italians, they get very disappointed if you haven't figured out what voice type you have. Well, we should have that same idea with the talent of our fellow human beings. We have a right to contribute. On the manufacturing side, I just want to say something which I think we can really use. It's a lot of fun. Mike Pompeo, you know, this fascist lunatic that people think of as some kind of patriot. Do you know that he's now getting paid by Nippon Steel out of Japan to help them take over U.S. steel, to shut down American steel production? That's Pompeo.
Man, I've seen, yeah, Mike Pompeo. I've seen a lot of, he's for anybody, he's the American general. He was once in charge of Afghanistan, I think. No, I've seen him do a whole bunch of funny stuff. It's not, yeah, he's on a lot of funny business. Yeah, I used to, yeah, I've seen that too. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Freedom.
I wanted to ask you what your stance is on Roe v. Wade.
I have to say, at the risk of getting everyone totally pissed off, that personally I am pro-life. I do not think that we can legislate it in that way, and I especially find it reprehensible when people claim to be pro-life and then don't think that you need things like universal health care or affordable housing. So I also
what about situations in which the mother's life is in danger or the fetus is unviable?
That's why I'm saying I'm not going to get involved in legislating this. I'm telling you what I personally think. I think we have to make it possible for people to raise families. We're not doing a very good job of doing that. I think there are obvious exceptions if someone is raped or etc. I'm also not opposed to birth control, you know, but I think you get into trouble when the government doesn't make it its priority to support life. I think it's a policy right now that the government doesn't fund abortions. I don't think the government should fund that, just as I don't think the government should promote euthanasia. You have insurance companies that really want to just put people on a morphine drip and deny you care. And once you make that the policy, you're going to see a massive escalation of death. So I think the purpose of government has to make it possible for people to live. And that these other questions, I think people are going to have to decide. Take my state where I am in New York. Mm-hmm. Abortion is not going to be made illegal. Personally, I have a really terrible problem with late-term abortions and abortions to term. You know, I think there should be some restrictions on that.
You know, late-term abortions. Yeah, I think that we should have the right to make our own choices with our own bodies. And I do appreciate your opinion. Thank you very much for answering my questions.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Freedom. Appreciate you very, very much. I believe Raiders for Life is next, and then Dr. Handala would be after. So Raiders for Life, appreciate you coming right back, my friend. Welcome to the show, and go right ahead, Raiders.
Hey,
how are you, buddy?
Hi, Diane. Hi, Diane. How you doing?
Hi.
I've been listening so far for the last 30 minutes. I agree with you, everything what you said, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're discussing. You're a brave politician. Not my politicians come up here and talk because they're scared, but you're brave, and I thank you for being honest and loyal and coming up here on this panel. And I have a couple of questions, but before I get to my question real quick, I just want to say I sort of agree with Freedom. Only stance I'm against you is what you said, pro-life. I'm a pro-choicer, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But everything else you said is 100%. So, But my question is this. I have a problem with freedom of speech, the First Amendment. My problem is Shapiro, the Democratic, excuse my language, idiot, Shapiro, is taking away freedom of speech in the universities. Are they saying that he passed a bill saying that universities students can't talk about the zombie. I'm gonna use zombies. I'm saying zombies.
Okay.
That's just a TikTok word for, you know what I mean. But taking away the rights because if you say something bad about the zombies, then they don't get thrown in jail or they don't get their classrooms taken away. Or Shapiro, I'm hoping if Kamala, I'm hoping and praying Kamala doesn't pick him because I'm all about freedom of speech. I'm all about my First Amendment. I'm about freedom of saying what I want to say, freedom of religion, because I am tired of these blueberries, these zombies preaching, their religion, because America was founded on the founding fathers of Christianity. But when the founding fathers came, they made freedom of religion in the sense that you could practice Islam, you could practice Christianity, you could practice Judaism, you could practice whatever you want in this country. And not many countries in the United States have that. I mean, outside the United States have that. If you go to Russia, it's different. If you go to Africa, it's different. We as Americans have that right, First Amendment. Now, I want your opinion about the First Amendment, about what Shapiro's doing, because that is totally wrong. I am totally against that. I'm sorry he's an idiot for doing that for Pennsylvania. I'm sorry about my wording, but I want your opinion on the First Amendment and what he's doing.
Well, I can tell you, I don't know what Shapiro is doing in Pennsylvania. I know my idiot Congressman Mike Lawler and Richie Torres, my friend Jose Vegas running against him, have this legislation they just introduced to stop anyone from speaking against genocide at any campus in the United States. So it sounds like what Shapiro is doing is something like
talking
that.
about. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's something.
Obviously, look, this is so disgusting. It is so evil because I have been so thrilled to see the young people out protesting genocide, because the only way you're really going to get change, and what distinguished, say, the American Revolution from the French Revolution, which ended in a bloodbath, is if you are out demonstrating because you're really mad because, the illegal immigrants got better health care than you did. Everything that's out of smallness, and I'm not saying that's just, I'm saying when you do things for yourself out of jealousy or smallness, you will never win. When you act because you're concerned about what is happening to someone else, to someone other than yourself, and you're willing to put yourself on the line and to risk your own well-being for the well-being of others, that's when you really have power, because you're no longer afraid of your own well-being. So what has been happening on the campuses with students risking everything, their career, their graduation, to say, I don't want to be party to a hideous crime being committed by my government, that is the most moral, noble action that someone can take. And we see it, I'm afraid, over and over. And think about what we were told about Biden, right? That the videos that people took at meetings where he was speaking, where he would freeze or he would fall over his own footsteps, or he didn't know how. We were told that those were all deep fakes, right? Those were deep fakes. Then you find out that actually NBC, CBS, ABC were all instructed to produce deep fakes. They were told that they had to edit out all the parts where he lost his memory and froze and fell. So they were the ones doing the deep fakes. And in a sense, the people promoting violence, the people promoting hatred, are the very ones who are trying to silence everybody else.
No, I'm glad you mentioned him, but that's the way I feel, because I'm going to tell you something. Erik Warsaw, my buddy here up on the very top, he gives up his life. I mean, if he give up his...
Raiders, your mute button went off, buddy. Hit your mute button.
The genocide. I'm sorry, I took it off. Somebody was calling me. My bad.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, my friend. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I want to say Erik Warsaw's been here 9 months fighting with these psyos, and we are educating ourselves. I love this live. And that's the thing. It's freedom of speech. If we don't talk about things, how you want to correct things? And I'm tired of these politicians going around taking away our freedom of speech. Even here on TikTok, I was banned twice for telling the truth. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is America. We should have a right to speak our mind. And if other parties don't like what we say, then they could walk away. They don't have to listen to us. I'm not telling them to stick around. But I agree with you, Diane. Please, I'm glad you're awesome on that. You are 100% right. I think we need to stop these politicians and stop taking away our speech. My father, which is a Vietnam vet, died for my freedom of speech. So I want to say that should be our given right. And what Erik does every day is our freedom of speech and our education. So I want to thank you for coming on here, Diane. That's all I have to say about that. I just hope you win and tell these congressmen and tell these congress lady to get off their high horse and stop taking away our freedom of speech. And so that's what I wanted to say. So I hope, thank you for everything. You're awesome. And I hope you win. I wish I could vote for you. I'm in Texas. I'm not in New York, but my heart's with you. And I'm going to definitely pass the word on TikTok to vote for you. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, everybody. Diane Sare is running for United States Senate against Kristen Gillibrand, who is a very, very hardcore pro-zombie. So we're not only gaining a good person in Congress, but taking a bad person out. I so hope you win. I'll be doing my best to help you too, Diane. And great Raiders, great question on Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who is going to be, the whole entire media is pretty much, they're not just promoting him, but he's like 99% locked in to be Kamala Harris's vice president. He's a really not a good person, everybody. He is anti-free speech. Like if you speak up, if you say anything bad about Israel, he's going to crack down on you. I mean, the guy, he's a very bad guy, man. Again, it's not a democracy if you're forced to have Kamala Harris and you're forced to have Josh. Listen, they still have not anymore. 3 more weeks to the Democrat National Convention. They could pick somebody else, guys. I mean, or they could allow the voters to pick somebody for them, so the voters would have a choice on who they want running for the Democrat nominee against Donald Trump and Jill Stein, but they don't. They force your selection. Kamala Harris is she is not that much well liked. Her position, her being a nominee for the Democrat Party is more of a formality. Joe Biden selected her because that's his job, to select the vice president as the nominee. It's a formality. So on a formality, we're getting Kamala Harris. And under the media's wishes, are we getting Josh Shapiro as her vice president? It's a ridiculous situation. Raiders, thank you so much. I think Dr. Handala is next. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say something about this Kamala Harris thing, because you realize they could have an open convention. The Democratic Party could have an open convention.
Exactly.
And come up with a candidate. But they're not. And not only that, here is Kamala Harris being forced on everyone who no one voted for. She wasn't running. So it's the most undemocratic thing that you could possibly imagine. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and that's, I keep mentioning that every damn day, is guys, you're 3 weeks away from the Democrat National Convention, where they officially give the nominee to a certain Democrat. They could have an open convention, and there's been Democrat leaders asking for an open convention. Let the people pick who their candidate's supposed to be. Let the Democrats pick their own leader. Why are the power brokers, why is the media picking, and why is a formality with Joe Biden having us, Kamala Harris is just forced on us. I mean, it's not a democracy. It's not a Democrat party. They should change the name of their party. Jill, everyone vote for Jill Stein or freaking Trump or whoever, anybody. Vengeful. Thank you, vengeful. Yeah, so it's just getting nuts with them. I really can't believe that either. I mean, they have a chance to have an open convention and they don't. So unbelievable. Where was I? Dr. Handala, thank you for your patience, my friend, and go right ahead, buddy.
Hi, Diane. Hi, Erik. Thank you for this opportunity. This great opportunity. Unfortunately, I cannot vote for you because I'm in another state, but I definitely would like to donate. My question is back to the connection of the ADL, I think, with organized crimes. If I understood, I was like running. I don't know if I understood everything in there, but I have you mentioned Meyer Lansky, and I did some research about the organized crime in the 30s, how they formed. And those three guys, but they are others, Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, and Lucky Luciano, which was in prison in northern New York. And he was freed because he helped the United States government to intercept the submarines of the Mustacho guys, the Nazis. So this is this is where they were so strong. And in several accumulated data showed that, or indicated that they been actually involved in the forming of the ITF, of the Israeli what's called defense. So because they formed as terrorist groups, and one of them is the Lahai group that assassinated the Bernadotte, the United Nations mediator, that he was about to reach an agreement to divide Palestine for 2 states. This is 1948, April 1948. So they assassinated. This is history. So it's in Wikipedia. Everybody knows that the Lahai murderers, they were like a terrorist, Zionist terrorists. They were acting as the other 7 terrorist bands of Zionists. They were acting against the Palestinian since 1920. And Argon, one of them, Steren. So there are 7 groups who are acting, and one of them. So actually, some data, some indication, or some search show that there were strict connection between these terrorist groups and the organized crimes in America. And they applied them with money, with the weapons, with everything. So, and actually in the movie of Meyer Lansky, they show this part, like where they being collected money and, beside the casino. I don't want to go in there, but my question, so I'm like, from the research I did, I'm 100% sure that the ITF was based in the beginning, especially, and organized and formed by these terrorist groups, and they were supplied and organized and financed by the organized crimes in America. So now there are a lot of a lot to do with that, because even Meyer Lansky, he requested and obtained the citizenship in 1969, and Golda Meir, she had to expel him in 1971 because the U.S. government requested him to be exported, and then they got him in Florida, but he never spent a day in prison. So now, how much of these organized crimes that they are strictly connected with the Zio groups, and it's still present in the United States government? So this is kind of my question. I don't know how much, if you can talk about this. This is kind of...
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. And I didn't know those earlier connections, although Meyer Lansky and, of course, the Bronfmans. But I will tell you this, which is of interest. And, lawyers have to represent criminals, so maybe you can't say a lawyer is a criminal because they represent one. But my opponent, Kirsten Gillibrand's father, was the lawyer for a very nasty sex cult here in New York, the NXIVM sex cult, which
I remember that.
Yeah, and the Bronfman family was involved in this very directly. So, this organized crime is clearly very big. It does have a big role in things. And I don't know if Kirsten Gillibrand has any of those tattoos. I haven't asked, and I don't think I'd like to see, but I'm just sort of joking about that, but you're right. It is totally organized crime. And I will say the other thing about the IDF, which was revealed in Haaretz, I believe in 2001. I think that's when it was. They had an interview with an IDF soldier who reported that the IDF was being trained using the manuals of the diary of General Stroop, who was the fellow who cleaned out the Warsaw Ghetto, who killed all of the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto. So here you have the NAZIs being used as a model, as a training manual for the IDF. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Thank you. For anybody who didn't, Meyer Lansky, everybody, back in like the Al Capone big days of the Italian mob and all that. Meyer Lansky was actually the Blueberry mob. The Blueberries had their own mob back then. I kid you not. Go ahead and look up Meyer Lansky. Pretty interesting story. And he ran the banking and the financing and the loan sharking. It's got a little bit of stereotype, but for other mobs and stuff too. Meyer Lansky, yes. Thank you very much to that was a very good question, Dr. Handala. Let me see. So I believe Pharaoh, thank you so much. The next person to ask a question would be JC Obey. Is that correct? And then I go to Alexandra and then down at the bottom. So JC Obey, welcome to the show and go right ahead, my friend.
Yes, thank you, Eric. It's a privilege to be with a very honorable lady with us today. My question is this: based on my past experience in the American Republic, I've been in the States for almost 48 years. And I remember the time when it doesn't matter who gets into office, the direction of this country maintained the same thing. Someone has said the United States is like an airplane with one side passengers is Republicans, one side is Democrats, and the pilot doesn't matter if it is a Republican or a Democrat. The direction of the airplane, both Republicans and Democrats agree on the destination. But it has been changed across the time. Now, if he's a Republican, the destination of the airplane is going to go left. If he's a Democrat, the destination of the airplane is going to go right. So it's very important to understand that whoever is going to be piloting the airplane will determine the destination of all the passengers in the airplane. And that creates a problem today in America because the Republicans are demonizing the Democrats and vice versa, which is the calamity of what's happening in America today. And if you're a Republican, you start demonizing the Democrat and vice versa. So to get into the pilot seat, that will determine the destination of the flight and all its passengers. And that's why today in America we see if you're a Republican, the Democrat is against you, and we are in the same flight. If you can imagine with me, if the pilot is a Republican, all the Democrats, passengers will be fighting the Republicans, and this will determine the flight will go downhill. It will not reach its destination. My question to you, we've heard, and I've been into voting a lot of time in this country. And almost without exception, every politician before the elections, they promise you heaven. I'm going to do this. I'm going to reduce taxes. Go do this, vote for me. Once we vote for him, we never hear from him. He doesn't deliver. He gets into office. He gets out with millions of dollars, and he doesn't deliver what he promises. My question to you, it's very good to have the same direction, same ideology, but what can you tell those constituents who are going to vote for you that you're going to deliver what you promised, even though there's a huge resistance within the Congress against what you stand for?
Well, I guess one way you know you trust me is I'm not going to promise you anything because I'm going to be one person in the U.S. Senate if by some miracle and a lot of support and help from everyone listening that I get in there. And I guess if I do a really good job, they might chase me down the halls and put me in jail or something. I think we really need a movement. I mean, I can guarantee you that I'm not going to be quiet. I'm going to introduce legislation. Number one, to put this whole look, we have to bankrupt this criminal enterprise, these billionaires in the City of London and Wall Street, the monopolies. I just did an interview with a farmer today. Now, Smithfield is the largest pork farmer in the world, and it's owned, they say, by the Chinese. It's true, their headquarters is in Shanghai. Do you know who the two biggest shareholders of Smithfield are? Goldman Sachs and the California Teachers Pension Fund. Now, what does Goldman Sachs and the California Teachers Pension Funds have to do with pork production? And might this be why we have so much trouble? So I think the number one question, in a sense, is to clean out this dirty money. It's absolutely absurd. The whole system is bankrupt. We need to reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act, the separation of the banks. And I think perhaps, given that the truth of the matter is the number of people benefiting from this corruption is a smaller and smaller percentile of the population, that we could get enough force to change this. The other advantage we have, look, if everything were going great, you could never do this. But the truth of the matter is we are on the brink of the biggest blowout of our financial system ever. And that means that we are going to have an opportunity to change all of this. And that's why I'm so concerned to make sure we all have a very noble and big idea of what we want to do. Let's not crawl around begging for crumbs. Let's really think about what our nation should be doing, what the world should be doing, the kind of policies that are needed, a total overhaul. So that's what I will be fighting for, and I am sure I will be in an enormous amount of trouble, and I'll need everybody up on Capitol Hill with your pitchforks to see if we can get some other people into line, and maybe a few other mavericks will get elected, and we can actually get something done. But the other thing on your airplane analogy, look, there's never been a clearer case, I think, than with what we see with Biden. We don't have a clue who's running the country right now. I don't know who is running the country. It's not Joe Biden. I think I know that. But who is it? And that is perhaps one of the most alarming things we're looking at.
That's 100% right. Oh, man. So, I mean, one of the reasons why Joe Biden is no longer running for president, everybody, is his cognitive difficulties, to word it nicely. But we've been the media and everyone's been making fun of this for years. Just now they're admitting it by means of dropping his ass. So I mean, it's freaking, who's been running the country for the past several years, guys? It's basically whoever's in charge of their domain has just been making their own decisions and not even asking permission, but just telling Joe Biden after the fact, is my personal opinion. Anthony Blinken has just been doing whatever the hell he wants. The same thing with everybody else. And I think freaking even Joe Biden's wife, Jill, I think she's had a lot of influence over Joe Biden too, which is, oh man, yeah, completely rudderless ship. 1000% agree with you on that. Diane, how much time did you have? I forgot to ask you beforehand.
We could go for another 10 minutes or so, that 10 or 15 minutes, that'd be fine. All
right. Let's get two more guests in. Then I believe, okay, so Alexandra, and then I believe Talia Ogaden would be the next two guests. So Alexandra, go right ahead. Thank you so much for your patience, Alexandra. Hello, how are you? Oh, let me do microphone request in case you haven't. There you are. Hello.
Hi, Diana. Thank you very much. I'm in New York, and I have two questions for you. First, I want to inform you about something that probably most of the people, they don't know. After the Second War finished, there was some countries, they wanted to pay the money back to the United States, and the United States didn't want the money back because they want to have control for those countries in Europe. So most people probably, they don't know this. I can tell you, Diane, if you want, one day I can tell you exactly which countries they were. But I want to know, what are you going to do on disabled people? I'm in New York. I'm disabled. You told something that it was amazing. They prefer to put you on drugs than help you so you can die. I'm going to be a little, it's difficult for me to speak because I'm 3 years on a bed. Nobody helps me. They tell me that I have to go. I cannot move myself. And they tell me if I want help, I have to go to the Social Security services. How this can be possible? How can a person be living on $300 on food stamps? And the Social Security Service tells you that you have to move yourself to the social service so they can help you. This is the country of freedom?
No,
What are you going to do?
exactly. Well, that's why I'm saying we have to bankrupt these bastards, because what you see is it's very arbitrary. They say, oh, well, we can't take care of people. We don't have the money. Well, they just sent another, an extra.
I'm sorry to
I
interrupt
don't-
you. That's not
oh,
what
okay.
they say. They say that you have to appear on the service instead of sending somebody to see these people that they need help. Because I'm not the only
Right.
one. There is a lot of
No,
people
but
in New York like that.
Right. I do think they actually want to increase the death rate.
So they prefer to keep me on drugs and keep my mouth shut. Me and
Yeah.
the other ones that they are like me. So what can be done? Because we should be able to do something. And somebody needs to talk for these people.
Well, you're very right. And if you want to go to my website and send me an email, I presume that since you're on here, you use email, sareforsenate.com, and send me a note. I would be glad to talk to you to see what we can find, because there do have to be advocates. I mean, you know, this is that it's
unbelievable. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm interrupting you, but I'm giving up at this point. 3 years and I'm giving up, and they keep me on drugs, and I'm going to be banned because of the word that I said. They prefer to keep me on drugs so I can die slowly. And this is insane and inhumane. And I'm on a country of freedom. I never thought that I had an accident and I will end up like this. And I'm like this, and like me, there is a bunch of people in New York like that. So who's going? Because there is money there. Where is that money? Where is that help?
Alexandra, I have
Yes.
a quick question for you. What is, all right, so because you're in the position and you know everything in all the details, so you'd best be informed. What would be a solution? Like, what would you hope the government would do as a solution?
The social service, they need to go out and they need to find the people, and when somebody asks for help, they have to have social workers to go to that house to see what's going on. It's not being on this office and be there and the person has to go there, because some people, they cannot go there. They are not well, even mentally. There is people with mental problems. They are dying in their homes. This has to be going on the street. Social workers, they have to go on the street, but no, they gain their money. There is money there for somebody that we don't know who's getting that money, because there has help, but only for the people that they can go, the immigrants, wherever, I don't know. I'm an immigrant also, and I was an immigrant, now I'm an American, but the problem is that if you can move yourself to the office, you can get help. If you cannot move, you can die on your house, on death, and whatever. One time they told me, once they put you on the street, we will help you. That's the solution?
Alexandra, that is absolutely terrible, and thank you for sharing that with us. Please contact Diana through an email so you could talk and give her some insight. Do that. That's absolutely terrible, and that's a good
sorry,
subject.
Diane. That's
I'm sorry,
okay.
Diane.
Are you in New York City, or are you in another part of the
I'm
state?
in New York City. I'm Queens.
Okay. Yeah, send me an email, because I may know some people also who can help you. But I agree, it's a huge problem, and I hear things like this all the time, much more often than I should.
Yeah, it's a new
Thank you, Alexandra, for coming by, and thank you for explaining that, Alexandra, because you're spreading awareness. So thank you once again, Alexandra, and yeah, send her an email. Thank you, Alexandra. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you for helping me.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Ogaden. Ogaden, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, my friend. Welcome to the show. Go right ahead for our last question.
Yes, thank you for Eric. Senator to be. I'm not from New York. I have a lot of relatives from New York, and I advise them. They're all Democrats. And so I advise them and advocate on your behalf. That being said, there in this country, people can get altered by, well-spoken people. Articulated words can alter the mind, And so people do not know that, well, I know, in my opinion, that when the Soviets backing up Ethiopia in the fight of Somalia, they took land from Somalia called Ogaden. That land still belongs to Ethiopia right now. Also, in the war right now in Ukraine and Russia is all being fought land that used to belong to Russia, and American citizens cannot comprehend that. My question from that is, will there be a resolution that you will put out saying that we should not advocate for wars?
Well, I absolutely think we should not advocate for wars. I think we have to establish an entirely new structure of relations among nations. Just as every single human being is equal and created equal, every single nation, including the Palestinian state, which needs to be recognized, has to have an equal right and equal ability to speak. That being said, a lot of these territorial disputes are extremely complicated. Now, some places they are finding creative ways to deal with them, like the Russians and Japanese had on certain questions of the development of the Sakhalin Islands. And I think many of us, if we knew that we were going to be safe, that we were going to have a high standard of living, that our children would have a right to have their cultural identity at least recognized and protected, and to grow up and be educated, we might decide that we could perhaps make compromises or live with certain shifts. And I'm not saying any specific place or proposal. I'm just saying we have to raise the bar in terms of the level of negotiation and discussion. And I think Douglas MacArthur really said it on the battleship of the USS Missouri when he accepted the surrender of the Japanese. And he said, after the nuclear bombs were dropped on Japan totally unnecessarily, the Emperor of Japan already was negotiating his surrender through the Vatican. There was no need for those bombs. And MacArthur was, anyone who saw the damage that was done and think about what we could do now, much worse, he said, we can annihilate ourselves. He said, we have had our last chance. If we resort to war again to solve or resolve our differences, Armageddon will be at our door. And he said that science and technology seem to have surpassed the human morality, and that we have to have a spiritual recrudescence. That is, we have to become better in order to live up to the technology that we have discovered, to ensure that we don't completely wipe ourselves and everything else off the earth. And I think that's really the number one issue right now.
All right, thank you for that, and I agree with that. Thank you, Eric, again.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you very, very much. Ogaden, I had to turn your microphone off because of the echo, but no, excellent question. And yeah, Diane is very, very anti-war, if you guys haven't noticed yet, as everybody should be, because sadly, it's oftentimes when we're going to war, it's not even for noble causes. It's for freaking somebody. Look at the Iraq war. It's not even our own selfishness that caused the Iraq war. It's I mean, it had no benefit to us whatsoever. I mean, yeah, the oil argument, which, yeah, that's true too. But I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. The stuff that our government does, it seems like it's just guided by money and other incentives other than the incentives of morality and what is best for our own country, for sure. Jesus. All right, Diane Sare, thank you so much for swinging by. I super duper appreciate you. And yeah, no, we hope, again, she's out of New York running for United States Congress in the Senate. Her opponent is Kristen Gillibrand, whom we hope to God does not win her election, because Kristen Gillibrand is my God. So we'd be getting a great candidate in there and a very bad person out. Kristen Gillibrand is, I mean, she doesn't give a damn about the country. She just purely, she's like an establishment kind of person, you know, just going for money and going for freaking, you know, APAC money, big military industrial complex money, big pharma money. And that's all she does too. She's just one of them. So Diane Sare, I really hope you win. Hope you win so much. And thank you again for swinging by. And I definitely appreciate you. Any last words?
Well, thanks very much for having me, and I would really urge people to go to the website, sareforsenate.com, all spelled out, SAREFOR Senate.com. Please donate. I need funds. Haven't been offered a nickel from APAC and wouldn't take it if I were. And if you want to volunteer, if you want to come to New York, or if you have friends or family in New York, come up. We got to break the blackout and be visible. And we're having rallies, handing out literature, doing banners from highways. And we got to stop World War III, which might happen before the election. So we all need to be out in the streets.
Man, ain't that the damn truth? In World War III, yeah, that's. I mean, it's like we're on the brink of World War III. And really, if World War III started, it's arguable that's already been going on, because all the nations that would be involved in a World War III, we've already been attacking the hell out of each other, just on minor ways, in skirmishes and in strategic attack and strikes. But full-scale war has not yet happened. But I mean, you know, yeah, 100%. Diane Sare, okay, I just your website, sareforsenate.com. I posted it in the Discord, everybody, and I will myself be donating after the show. I'll hit you up on there too, so you'll get something from me too. And I super appreciate you. Thank you so much, Diane Sare. You are always welcome on our show, and we will be rooting for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Good night.
Diane Sare, everybody, super. That was an awesome. I mean, I'm so glad she swung by and everything. That's really cool, man. That's the kind of people we need. And you can see that sadly, you know, people who do the right thing, like she doesn't take money from APAC or big corporations or anything like that, guys. She does it the right way. So, I mean, but doing it the right way, she has less money. And that's one of the reasons why I always explain, like, you know, sadly, because of the incentive structure in our system, sometimes bad politicians chase out good politicians, because bad politicians will take money from anybody. They will lie, cheat, steal, do whatever it takes to get people's money and win elections. And Diane Sare is one of the few good ones. So we're going to be rooting for her and trying to help her out as much as we can.